With both sides in the war starving to death, Commander Da Shan chastises Qing Yun for gambling on the remaining soldiers in their ongoing siege. One of the young soldiers, unable to move due to an injury, cries out for help but is denied aid. The movie begins in the 19th century. During the Qing Dynasty, China was under a corrupt rule that led to an uprising known as the Taiping Rebellion that lasted 14 years. The recorded deaths were 70 million, significantly similar to World War II casualties. After a fierce battle between loyalists and rebels, one gloomy afternoon occurs. Many soldiers from the loyalist camp are slaughtered, except General Pang Qingyun, who emerges from a pile of dead bodies. Picking himself up from the devastation, he wanders in the opposite direction of the evacuation line. Seeing a woman going the same way, he follows her to a nearby village but faints halfway. The woman shows compassion and brings him to a deserted house to heal him. General Qingyun awakens from a bed, distraught and guilty over the deaths of all his men. At the same time, the rival Qi army watch the brutality on the sidelines. They sleep beside each other at night, but the general finds her gone the following day. Continuing on foot in the war-torn village, he sits among refugees waiting for the daily rations to be distributed. A warlord, Zhang Wuyang, notices his military apparel and tests his mettle. After proving he is good in battle, the general is taken to see his brother, Zhao Erhu, who is executing a raid against a rebel convoy. General Qingyun watches from above as the two brothers and their armies slaughter their way through the siege, even going so far as helping Wuyang, who almost gets sliced in the face. With a quick dash, he uses a rebel soldier as a shield to avoid the bullets of the enemy commander long enough to stab him with a spear. The bandits cheer, witnessing his courageous act, and offer him to join their crusade as they head home. Upon arriving in town, the bandits are greeted with joyous praise from the villagers, including the woman who saved General Qingyun, Liansheng. However, much to his surprise, he discovers he is the wife of Erhu. After making love to her husband, she busies herself with food preparation while reminiscing about her brief encounter with General Qingyun, telling him a story about being saved by Erhu from becoming a young Zhou pony, a courtesan sold to wealthy men. Later during dinner, Qingyun tells Erhu about the betrayal of the Qi troops that led to his men dying in battle. He consoles him, believing brotherly love is essential to winning a war. Later, after Liansheng brings Wuyang some food, she tries to hide from Qingyun to avoid him. Still, the persistent general finds her, asking why she did not run away from Erhu when she had the chance. Suddenly, the Qi army attacks the village, and the soldiers raid the town for stolen supplies. The villagers' defiance is met with oppression, leading to a tense standoff with Erhu, who ultimately surrenders to the commander. He gives him a lashing, followed by a warning not to repeat the same mistake. The following morning, as the village struggles to rebuild what was lost, General Qingyun suggests that Erhu and his men enlist for Lord Chen's army to rival the Qi army. He accepts the proposal, provided the general will take a blood oath to prove his loyalty to their brotherhood. After mercilessly killing 3 outsiders, Erhu and Wuyang join their bloodied blades in the fire and swear allegiance to one another. The next day, their troops head out of the village to start their journey to the Qing Empire. Not long after, the 3 men are summoned to the High Court, where Qingyun defends their actions to Lord Chen and requests to undertake a mission to capture Shu City within 10 days. Though initially dismissive of the idea due to recruiting only 800 men, the lords agree to provide an additional 1,500 men in the new Shan army as long as they do not receive wages. Qingyun accepts this, believing they will ransack the city's spoils for profit. Sometime later, the Shan army prepares for the upcoming conflict at their base. Erhu is worried about their success, but Qingyun believes they can win if they break through the enemy line and engage their soldiers in hand-to-hand combat. This plan will require 200 men willing to use their bodies as shields for the archers behind them to get within range of the enemies. Though many will be sacrificed, Wuyang rallies for the support of the plan, as Erhu promises the men's wages will be doubled if they die and tripled should they survive the onslaught. The next day, the Shan army holds its position across the battlefield. The Shu army, led by Commander Huang Wenjin, is waiting in the distance. A rival messenger arrives to order their surrender, only to get beheaded by Erhu, initiating the first attack wave led by Wuyang. As expected, the enemy frontline opens fire, shooting a few soldiers, with many still rushing onward equipped with metal shields. Though Erhu is eager to save the men, Qingyun dismisses him and lets the plan play out accordingly. The archers shoot the arrows from behind the human shields, catching the Shu army off guard. Due to the heavy losses, Wenjin orders the entire back line to push forward and clash with the horsemen, led by Erhu, who have intentionally blinded their horses for them to charge in a straight line. General Qingyun follows with his horsemen as the Shu army bombards the area with cannon fire. He quickly leaps from his horse and charges the enemy bombardiers with his spear, followed by a hack and slash toward the enemy foot soldiers. Though one of the soldiers attempts to light the cannon, the quick-thinking general moves it away to destroy the entire barricade. He grows weary as another cannon targets him, only to be deflected by a courageous soldier of the Shan army. His sacrifice inspires him and Erhu to continue the fight as they slaughter their way through the battle. Qingyun is stabbed in the shoulder, though he is saved by Wu Yang and Erhu while the men guard them in a circle. The men accept their fate and declare they will fight and die as brothers as they continue the attack. Far across the distance, Commander Lu Dashan becomes astonished by the effort of the Shan army, ordering the rest of the 1,500 to attack and come to their aid. Ultimately, they overpower the Shu army, with Wu Yang beheading the enemy commander. Returning to the court to share the news of the victory, the lords become thrilled, agreeing to provide 5 more battalions and reuniting Qingyun with an old ally, He Kui, the leader of the Kui army. Along with Suzhou, the Shan army is challenged to topple the enemy's capital, Nanking. They return to the village, receiving a warm welcome. However, one of the soldiers, Shi Jinbao, sadly returns the emblems of his fallen comrades to their family. Later, after tending to Erhu, Liansheng rushes to the abandoned house where Qingyun is taking shelter. However, she hesitates to go inside, holding back feelings for him. Over the next few weeks, the Shan army wins a series of victories across the province, allowing the Kui army's men to pillage the spoils. One day, during a raid, 2 young soldiers sexually assaulted terrified young women in the city. Despite being free to do as they please, they are arrested by Qingyun, who promises not to tolerate their unlawful conduct. Erhu pleads for mercy to spare them, but the strict general allows their public execution to take place as an example, burying them shortly after. Elsewhere, while playing a board game, the Qing lords notice Qingyun's ambition grows and fears his influence will overreach their own, deciding to deny help and supplies moving forward. This causes their mission to liberate Suzhou to last for a whole year, leading to many casualties. With both sides in the war starving to death, Commander Dashan chastises Qingyun for gambling on the remaining soldiers in their ongoing siege. One of the young soldiers, unable to move due to an injury, cries out for help but is denied aid. Feeling abandoned, Qingyun and Wu Yang return to the Qing Empire, pleading with the lords for assistance in Suzhou, only to be ignored. With no other recourse, the general decides to go directly to the Kui army and beg for their help. He proposes dividing Nanking with He Kui's forces after a successful takeover, a plan the commander accepts. Meanwhile, Erhu, left to lead the ailing soldiers outside Suzhou, decides to sneak into the city at night, leaving Liansheng to tell his brothers he will die a hero, upsetting Qingyun as he arrives with the provisions for the men. He tells Wu Yang they have waited long enough and must attack at dawn. Shortly after, he sees Liansheng and chases her through the underground trenches, ready to confess his feelings for her have grown. She initially denies him but gives in to make love under the moonlight, away from everyone. A day later, after rummaging through Suzhou streets for refuge, a disguised Erhu offers opium to Commander Wenjin, who recognizes him instantly and reveals one of his former soldiers, Shi, has defected and joined his faction. Later at dawn, Qingyun orders the men to prepare for battle. As he instructs Liansheng to leave and return home, he promises to marry her if he survives. Elsewhere, Wenjin accepts to surrender and allows Erhu to kill him in a duel to the death. As he stabs the blade in his chest, the commander asks him to promise to spare the lives of his 4,000 men, including the civilians in Suzhou. Later, the Shan army is surprised to see the townsfolk leave the city in droves and praises Erhu for his heroism. Though Wu Yang and Qingyun are thrilled about his return, Erhu looks visibly worried about the deal he has just made, now that the people in the city will be their responsibility. As she and the townsfolk demand bread, Erhu explains the situation to Qingyun, who instantly denies help, having only gathered food for 10 days through their journey to Nanking. He becomes angered, knowing that the general made a deal with He Kui, despite the value of the Kui army toward the siege. Disagreements arise with the provision share, with Erhu ordering the storehouse to open. Still, Qingyun warns this will be the only share they will provide as he orders their execution. Angered, he tries to lash out, but Wu Yang blocks his way, believing they are making the right choice. Erhu is then knocked out and taken away by the soldiers for his insubordination. Realizing their fate, Shi and his people lock arms as the archers ready their bows, and a chained Erhu's loud pleas are heard from a distance. The massacre commences even though the Wu Yang and the soldiers are visibly horrified by what they are doing. By the end of it, Erhu is released and vows never to talk to Wu Yang again because of his actions. As the gate opens, Erhu becomes disillusioned, kneeling beside Shi's body and caressing the young boy's face. Later, the corpses are dumped in the trenches and buried. Feeling fed up with the power struggle, he declares he will go home and rallies others to join him in his desertion, much to Qing Yun's disapproval, as they are yet to take control of Nanking in some days. He reminds him of the words he once said about everyone deserving to be free, even the impoverished. He believes he is now a hypocrite for the massacre. Qing Yun pleads with him to be reasonable, explaining it was an essential advantage to get ahead of He Kui in liberating millions of civilians in Nanking. Wu Yang also expresses concern, pleading for him to stay for their pledge not be broken. With the whole army kneeling down and asking for forgiveness, he reluctantly agrees to last as long as he can kill Qing Yun if he is wrong about his plan. True to what was agreed upon, Nanking's takeover was successful, and tales of the three brothers' valiant efforts were featured in a stage play. After a month passes, the city is rebuilt, and the brothers have undertaken new positions in the Dowager Empress's government. Hu, on his part, fortifies the Shan regiment but hands out the soldiers bonuses without permission, much to Qing Yun's disapproval, who is yet to be appointed Nanking governor. Later, He Kui shares a letter with Lord Di about Qing Yun's upcoming inauguration, upsetting them both. To ensure his downfall, they will need Hu to support them. Elsewhere, Hu and Liansheng witness the dazzling performance of the three brothers' opera and sobs over the memories of Wu Yang and Qing Yun during the war. Later at the tea house, He Kui attempts to convince him to join forces to humiliate Qing Yun as they take Nanking for themselves. Surprisingly, he releases his pent-up rage to the commander's aid by beating him up, proving that he is still resentful of Qing Yun. Shortly after, Liansheng leaves and rides a boat, not knowing she is observed closely behind by Wu Yang. To his surprise, he sees Qing Yun with her, fueling his suspicion that they are having an affair. Sometime later, at an imperial summoning, the Dowager Empress bestows him with golden robes, solidifying his appointment as governor of Nanking and rewarding the people with a 3-year-long tax relief. Shortly after, the imperial lord counseled Qing Yun to sever old ties with Hu, suggesting he must be eliminated because of his negative influence. He thinks it over as he leaves and looks over the icy horizon. Meanwhile, Hu tells an awakened Liansheng he is ready to return home, feeling unwanted in Nanking, and asks her to come. Suddenly, he gets alerted to Qing Yun's mysterious disappearance. However, he only hides in secret to plot his assassination of Hu, which Wu Yang has somehow deduced. Later, Hu takes the bait to check on Qing Yun, believing he is the one to be assassinated. Wu Yang warns the general about his plan, but since his mind is made up, he uses the opportunity to save Hu by visiting Liansheng and killing her to preserve the pledge. Meanwhile, on a rainy night, Hu is fatally shot with arrows, cursing the name of his killer and dying without knowing it was his brother Qing Yun all along. The general cries as Wu Yang frantically knock on the door, though he is too late to stop the assassination. The moment the inauguration arrives on a stormy afternoon. At 11:45 a.m., Qing Yun steps out of the gates and walks toward the court, only to get stabbed by Wu Yang, forcing the two brothers to skirmish. The intense fight ends with Wu Yang defeated, though the general is not pleased to beat him, as he walks away. The injured Wu Yang gets up and stabs him, but to his surprise, a paid assassin shoots Qing Yun with bullets from above. He then declares himself his brother's killer, not knowing the government had set up the general's assassination weeks before the inauguration. He subsequently framed Wu Yang to hide their mess. The movie ends with Governor Pang Qing Yun is said to have died on July 26, 1970, followed by Zhang Weiying's execution in September of that same year. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more videos like this to help the channel out. Have a nice day.